Alright, I'm going to do a quick overview of some keyboards because of reasons. First one is probably not the one we should start with, but whatever. The Flanck, the fake Blanck. Standard 40%. I drilled a hole for a reset button. I don't know if you can see that in the camera. Probably not. Yeah. Good talk, whatever. This was all hand wired and actually has some fancy LEDs. Shiny, right? GNB. Lots of fun stuff. Cool thing about this keyboard is my daughter running around upstairs, I guess. It is made of cardboard, which is not really the most resilient material. I know, surprise. But gets a little wet, it gets a little puffy right there. So that's kind of where that 40% in the jacket pocket came in. It's literally protecting it from the rain, from melting. But still fits, still was good. It's actually really lightweight, and I like that. Also, the sound is rather muted. So I like it in its own right. To compare directly, also, this is an acrylic cut in the middle, and just kind of affords a little bit of visibility, but for the most part, the important thing it gives is rigidity, because it allows this whole thing to, first of all, not be curved. It was curved earlier. I don't know, something about the cutting process, or maybe it's just pounding in the middle of it constantly, but it caused the whole thing to curve. So this straightened it out and gave it a lot more rigidity. Made a big difference in the typing feel too. So I don't mind the cardboard. I actually kind of like the way it looks, but it's not sturdy enough. So having something like this in the middle actually makes a big difference to the feel. Also, this just shelf, sticky, whatever. Same stuff here. All along the bottom makes it, as opposed to feet rather, makes it so that you can set this on top of a laptop keyboard and be able to type normally without hitting any keys. If those were just feet, you'd be pressing keys down here, 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 and here, wherever the feet are. And then you start thinking about, well, I need a laptop cover, or I need to disable the keyboard. This is just a pretty elegant solution, and actually I believe lends to muting the sound a little bit too. So that's the Flanck. I mentioned it was lightweight. Definitely lightweight compared to this. This is probably about twice as heavy. I'll put them on a scale eventually once I have a scale and the inclination, which will probably be never. But once I do that, I'll share the difference. This is the Blanck, B-L-A-N-C-K. The idea for making something like this a while ago. The idea is to have the lighting in that cyan dough. Really a favorite. Have the lighting shine through as much as possible. And I don't want to freak out the camera here, but I just gotta. I don't know how that's coming through. But it comes through pretty happy and nice for me. Cyan. So, great thing about this keyboard, all the same things. It's just as portable size-wise, aside from being slightly thicker, just barely thicker than the Flanck. And here's my tenting kit. It's my proper, very nice split keyboard. You can actually, I've done the math, you can split 2 full planks on a teensy. Maybe that'll come later. Anyways. This is all acrylic cut, all acrylic plate, hand wired on the bottom. I've worked out a pretty good method for hitting these diodes, getting them done. This took, I think, about 2 hours. Maybe a little over 2 hours just for the hand wiring. And then the verticals, the columns, looks like a chicken on the camera here that you can actually see these. This is all probably way too far away for you to enjoy. But the columns are single core wire, unshielded going across. And worked pretty well. I expected issues with contacting the diodes at the crossovers. That was not the case. Even where this teensy is sitting, surprisingly. Because it is a tight fit. So, that's that. Still haven't figured out. This was actually from a laser cutter failure. You can see we've got some edges right there. Edge broke off. And then some of these support holes are way too close. Way too close to the edge. And some have even cracked. So, I don't have a good mounting solution for it yet, but to be frank, I was bored. I had these as failed cuts and just kind of held on to them for some reason, and the laser cutter went down. They were doing maintenance on it, so I couldn't work on anything and just had this lying around and said, well, it's still a plate, even if it's busted and not quite right. So decided to make it, and look what happened. Kind of nice. The power of boredom overcomes a lot. Here are Infinity Ergodox, and hate to say it, but I don't like them. It might just be because the firmware is not all there yet. I know there's a TMK firmware for it. I haven't dug into it, but what comes out of the box is just... I mean, it's fine for lots of people. It's just not... It doesn't have the kind of customization that EasyAVR has, and that is something that I've come to rely on very heavily, just for my day-to-day. And, I don't know, it's like they lack some charm. But I've been trying them out with these QFR keys from my QFR, obviously. And because they originally had DSA, and I did not like them. And I wondered if it was the vertical stagger that was throwing me off. Because I'm good on grid. I'm all about the grid at this point. Grid. Totally sold. But this vertical stagger I'm not sure about. So this was all DSA, and I was typing on it, and I was missing stuff. And I stuck with it, and I was still missing stuff. And I couldn't get the feel down. And I thought, well, it's this vertical stagger's throwing me off. So I swapped keys with the QFR, and it wasn't the vertical stagger. It was DSA. So DSA is not working for me. But I'd probably get back into these once I get the TMK firmware figured out and get it to kind of one of my standard configurations. To be frank, as something that sits at a desk, this is pretty fine, pretty good. Layout's a little wonky for me, but I I understand the design decisions that went into it. I could probably learn to like it, but I just don't have the time because I'm making new stuff and interesting stuff and custom stuff. But whatever. They're still really neat, though, which is, that counts for a lot. Go away, but don't fall. That's gonna fall. QFR, the one that kind of started it all, with we're in the DSA and our good friend the Frosty Flake. This is where I realized that the DSA was not the problem, because this is so weird. Maybe it just needs to be completely flat, but so weird. So, anyone want some DSA keys? I think the QFR was the start of all of this for me. It's actually the keyboard. It did not have a Frosty Flake, and it was kind of as a method of standardizing. I don't know. It's just cool. You know, I'm a programmer working with this stuff. It's hard to say that the keyboard is, you know, totally necessary for everything that I do and all that, but it was just cool at the time. And then I started doing the customization, and then I started changing stuff around, and then I started paying attention to this thing that I was doing and how my wrists hurt. And that is a perfect segue to, this is the gateway drug. Perfect segue to, probably shouldn't be touching that Frosty Flake like that. Not grounded. This, well, actually, let's start here. AT101W, aka Bigfoot, I believe. And this is that reminds me. Sorry. Sound test. Man, even when you just hit that DSA, it just feels wrong. Infinity Ergodox sound test. That was with Browns. This is the Bigfoot. Just wonderful. You know, I wasn't into the whole keyboard sound thing and, you know, this and the feels and all that. But this is a piece of equipment. And for someone who works with computers all day, you gotta admit, your keyboard it's your sword. That's the tool you're using all day. I'm a firearms instructor, I'm a gun guy. I've got great guns. Just fantastic, wonderful guns. Don't shoot them. Don't shoot them nearly as much as I want to, and I certainly don't shoot them every weekday. This, every weekday. I get to enjoy this every weekday. And my poor guns languish. I'm sorry. So, digression. AT101W, just wonderful. Feels, sounds, so crisp, so fresh, and so clean. Great, but gigantic, obviously. So, I knew I wanted to make a split after I was doing this thing and really noticing that wrist pain. Ugh, I shouldn't have done that. So, and at the time, this is in the project, the AT101 split 56 GhettoDox project. At the time, I didn't know really what I wanted to do. I just said, this is an old keyboard. Yeah, it's kind of nice. It was pretty beat up. But it had it has a solid plate, and it had switches. So, switches and keycaps, I guess. So, I knew I could harvest those. That was where I picked this up. It was why I saved it from a bin. Because it was not this one, obviously. I took the other one apart. But my intention was to part it out. And to, well, here's one actually. Strip it down to the plate. And maybe use the plate for something. But mainly to get the switches. So while doing that, I looked at this plate, and I'm sitting there going, man, I sure wish I had something split. If I could just cut it. No, that doesn't work. I would have to change things. No, that doesn't work. If I cut across there, then the switch won't be supported. No, that doesn't work. And eventually I settled on a design. And by settled, I mean grabbed a power tool and started cutting. And really just kind of split things up. Might be able to see that. The plate is there. It's split in certain places, but still supports the switches and still locks them into place. The plate is sitting atop this laser cut bit, and something that was a lot of fun to play around with. Originally this side looked a lot like this side, propped up with clothespins and just kind of hot glue everywhere. That was the deal, but then we we got access to a laser cutter at our actual semi-rural Kentucky library. So figure that out. But started messing around with some designs, cutting bits out. This is also burnt cardboard. The cardboard, the pressed board that I'm using has white on one side. It's actually the bottom of some drawers. And I just took it apart because we weren't using it anymore, and I grabbed this stuff and said, ugh, yeah, I'll hold on to this. I'm going to use this sometime if you're a material hoarder like myself. And it was just sitting there, but now I needed something to cut. And this was very rough cut with a box knife. Just cut it over and over until I made it through. And obviously not very form-fitted. But with the laser cutter, we started designing stuff. This top plate, or the top part, is the burnt cardboard. You can see that's where the white comes from. That was the matching color. And then the bottom is this, the same here, which just looks great with these keycaps, by the way. It's okay with the water, it just needs a little bit of sealant before I put it down. But again, burnt cardboard on the top, burnt cardboard on the bottom, and the acrylic in the middle made a huge difference for the feel of it. And the rigidity of it, there was flex, and that was not something that was, I don't know, it's kind of strange. It kind of makes you slow down your typing, because you're not totally sure that you're pressing how much pressure you need to get. But once everything gets rigid, and I was tenting at that time, it makes a huge difference. Also made a huge difference to the sound. So, left side, rigid, acrylic, sitting on shelving. This one is floating. It's open. See all the diodes there, all that good stuff. And also sitting on shelving stuff. So I've actually got, these are the PBT keys, original, and then these are some ABS fake Dolch. So there is actually audible difference between those two. Barely notice it, but this side enclosed, open, this was the first split that I had made. And this was fantastic. This was great. Because at this point, I was getting my wrist straight. I was tenting at the time, and actually at work, it's all laptop, so this would sit on the laptop slightly. Also experimented with these things for tenting, these tins, and that's actually what's posted on the Reddits. Even now, that feels so nice. This is what it was. It just feels so nice. And that's just full, no forearm pronation, that's where you would rest. It's just a relaxing place to put your hands. But great thing, great it's a keyboard. It's great. It's just a great keyboard. Worked really well for me, primarily because I kept making it better for me and identifying things I wanted to change and changing them. Iterations, iterations, iterations. This will actually undergo one more iteration, probably today when I go to the laser cutter, where it's going to get its own. We're gonna cut the ribbon here, and that's gonna be fun. And build this to look more like this. And that has its own challenges that I'll be working out. But we'll be giving it a hardware USB Type-C conversion using these moderately expensive breakout boards for USB Type-C after mapping all of these out in a most tedious way. There's actually some caveats to this. It's rather difficult because it works both ways, and in order to get full usage out of it, maximum hardware wires across, you can't flip these and you can't swap them. It's actually a lot of fun. Yeah. Here we go. Come on. This mess took several hours. But my back hurt and I woke up early, so I figured why not. But you can get 18 wired connections if you keep the cable orientation one way. And actually, if you short across some of these with no short, with the shorts, you can actually get 2 more connections. So 20 connections, 20 hardware connections across this little cable, which is neat. And covers way more than this thing needs. Also, when you put it on the tin, it sounds like rain falling on steel, I guess. I don't know. Very pleasant. Hey, look, it's still recording. Good heavens. Almost done, I promise. GhettoDox. You go away. Ah, and of course, the jewel. Is it a jewel? IBM Lexmark model M15 ergonomic keyboard. Not in the best shape, but it was free. Found it in a bin, which is fantastic. And the ergos, man, this is the brass ring. I don't even know what that means or why that's a thing. This is the goal, to achieve this. It is ridiculously ergonomic. Just beautiful. The sound, obviously, it's buckling, IBM buckling springs. The adjustability, all flat, spalled out, which is actually something I plan on doing to a Blanck 40%, split in the middle and let it do that, but not be detachable. But this is detachable. Just fantastic. And these feet, they actually extend, and they're perfectly sized and proportioned to work with these built-in shorter feet. It's the ergonomics on this thing are ridiculous. This is the gold standard. Truly. It's incredible. Especially this layout. Just wonderful. But obviously very difficult to get, very hard to find, and if you can, usually very expensive. But you just cannot beat this with a stick. It is wonderful. I wonder if I'm still recording. I'm just here talking to myself. Nope, we are. Neat. Alright. We do need to wrap up, though. Because, good heavens, I've just been talking about keyboards in a rambling fashion for almost 30 minutes. You signed up for this. You're still here. I don't believe it. Wonderful. But not programmable. I haven't done the soarer thing yet. Soarer. But it's just great. I need to. I would probably still want to hand wire it. Take it down, short the board connections, set them up with diodes, and hand wire it on top of the board, because heaven knows you can't change the sound of this thing. And removing the board does change the sound. It's just so nice. Alright, I gotta stop because of reasons. And this is how I don't know how to end videos. So, ta-da! Ba-la-la-la-la-la.